a pattern change is coming to the United States over the course of the next few weeks, and this is going to bring excessive heat, excessive rainfall, I should say, and the risk of isolated severe weather. And starting off the day one outlook, we can tell that we do have a slight risk of severe weather with a marginal risk around that. There is the chance for a tornado or two today in this risk. As you can tell, it is a 2% risk of tornadoes today. And we do have a 15% chance of some winds exceeding 60 miles an hour and a 5% chance of some hailstones being a bit larger than 1 inch, which would be quarter size. But I do think a few ping pongs could actually fall today, mainly in portions of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan. Tomorrow, severe weather does actually ramp up a bit, and I do think a bit more of an elevated tornado threat is going to be in play tomorrow across portions of Colorado. And I will go over that, but you can tell a slight risk of severe weather is in play with a marginal risk from Maine all the way through Pennsylvania. So we're going to have to watch this. As you can tell, it's a very large area, and then we do actually have a bit. I should just say that we have a risk extending from the northeast in portions of Maine all the way through Michigan, back into portions of Montana, into Colorado, through Kansas. You can tell just a very large area in that marginal risk of severe weather. A bit more, it is only a 2% tornado risk, but I do think the greatest tornado threat is going to come out of parts of northeastern Colorado. I do think that is where our greatest chance of tornadoes is coming for tomorrow. 15% chance of winds exceeding 60 miles an hour, and a 15% chance of any hailstones exceeding 1 inch in diameter, and a 10% chance for 2 inch. I do think a few ping pong balls are likely tomorrow, maybe more scattered, but I do think it's likely we do see ping pong ball sized tail tomorrow. And I would not rule out a bit larger, so we're going to watch. Moving on to the day 3 outlook, we can see here large marginal risk of severe weather in play across portion all the way from portions of Montana back into parts of South Florida. As you can tell, very weird outlook, but we aren't going to touch on that too much. Here we are on the HRRR. You can see storms in the next hour are going to get to their most intense stages, and then they're going to form into this weak line. So we're going to watch this very closely. But I don't think a high tornado threat is coming out of today. As we see here, on the significant tornado parameter values, they're not very high, so nothing too crazy. Moving on to tomorrow, this is what radar could look like. And we can see here, very few supercells. But if we get a supercell here in Colorado, I would not be surprised if we do see a strong tornado, honestly. But at this point in time, it does not look likely. But here when these supercells first get going, they're going to have a decent atmosphere to work with. As you can tell, around 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. Our SIG-TOR values, they're low, but they're not zero. So we're going to have to watch it very closely. And here's what the NAM-NST model is showing. It actually does show those cells firing off, but they don't look to be too intense, and the bulk of the severe weather does look to remain here in portions of northeast Colorado on the NAM-NST model, more as a damaging wind threat instead of a tornado threat. So this is the jet stream, and this plays a big factor into what our weather is, and this is how it sits right now. You can tell it does have this trough digging and then ejecting way far to the north. And that is why we do actually have the risk of severe weather across a very large region. So we have to keep an eye on this. As we push this forward, you can tell it does actually get a bit more defined over here off the west coast of California. So we're going to have to watch that closely, but nothing too crazy I will think will happen out of these storm systems. But then we are actually going to have to watch here. Our jet stream gets lifted extremely far to the north. And with this, and it's very neutral, its flow. So this is where we get high pressure dominating across a very large area. And we just see this huge ridge build across this whole area, bringing heat and all this Gulf moisture and heat into this area. So this is where we have to watch these lines, these little short waves for any severe weather. But high pressure is going to dominate and promote very hot temperatures and excessive heat. I do think the Northeast may actually get a bit more active here with this setup, which it normally does, because this area is going to see a lot more of these ejections out of Canada, which is going to promote more severe weather, maybe a elevated tornado threat a few times. But I don't think anything too crazy, and I do think our jet stream is going to stay lifted pretty far off to the north for a long time. So we're going to have to watch it closely, but you can see pretty much all throughout our jet stream, the farthest south it gets is right around here. So we're going to have to watch this. We do actually have to watch for these shortwave troughs to bring severe weather. But honestly, nothing too crazy right now. It just looks like a bunch of excessive heat. If we go to precipitation, you can see radar is going to show that too. As you can tell, once we get into early next week, it looks like rain is going to be hard to come by, and it's going to be across the same areas, it looks like. So we're going to watch it closely, but this looks to be a very interesting start to July into mid-July, I do have to say. And I do think it's going to be extremely hot. So we're going to keep an eye on it, but I don't think severe weather is going to be on the high end here in the future. And here, if we go and look at the European model, you can tell it's painting that same picture here for this little bit. Jet stream lifted extremely far to the north here soon. And it's just going to promote more severe weather across this area. And we actually have to start to watch here in the Pacific Northwest for a bit of severe weather. But I don't think we are going to see significant severe weather for a while. Now, we do actually have quite a, I shouldn't say quite intense, but we do actually have a decently strong flow here into the Northeast, which may promote a bit of a elevated severe threat here as we go into the start of July. But overall, nothing too crazy. Here towards the end of the run here on the Euro, it does actually show our jet stream still being lifted extremely far to the north. But we do actually have a couple short waves, and I do think these could promote severe weather across the plains again, along with across portions of Dixie and the Ohio Valley. So we're going to watch it very closely, but overall it does not look like I had already said, it does not look like severe weather is going to be likely over the course of the next few weeks across large areas. And we see here, not very active severe weather-wise. Now, rain we may get, but it's not going to be very active, I don't think. And this is really going to show if I pull up what rain totals look like. So this is over the course of the next couple weeks. This is on July 8th. Obviously, we do have a few areas, but you can tell, looks like decent amount of rain are going to fall across all of the United States, mainly across that area. We do have this area here that does not see much rain, but it does look like it is going to be rainy across this area, but not, I don't really see any severe weather or high-end severe weather threats coming out of this, which is a good thing, as after this spring, we definitely need a break from severe weather. But it does look like we are going to get pretty warm here. If we go and look at the temperatures, you can tell here, it does look like it's going to get pretty hot. So we're going to keep an eye on it. As you can tell, it gets very hot in portions of California and Arizona. It gets pretty hot here in Texas and Oklahoma, along with the East Coast. You can see there's a bunch of warm air with our jet stream lifted extremely far off to the north. You can see all of the United States is around 90 degrees. So with a few exceptions here in the mountainous terrain, around 50, 60, maybe even 70, but nothing too crazy. So we're definitely going to have to be watching this, as excessive heat is going to be a problem here for the next few weeks. The last thing I'd like to touch on is thank you guys so much for 803 subscribers. It is a dream to hit this, and I just can't believe I've made it this far. And the journey is only beginning here, and we are less than 200 subscribers from 1,000. So make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you are new here, and share this channel to anyone that you know as we push for 1,000. So yet again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.